Hello, and welcome to Regrets I've Had a Few. I'm Paul Hunter, Artistic Director of Told by an Idiot, and this is a podcast where I talk to friends and colleagues delving into what made them the person they are today. Hello, and welcome to Regrets I've Had a Few, the Told by an Idiot podcast. Now, as I record this month's edition, we are days away from opening our new show, Would You Bet Against Us, at the Birmingham Repertory Theatre, which celebrates my football team, Aston Villa, and in particular, their greatest ever achievement. 40 years ago, this very month, they became one of only 5 English teams to lift the European Cup. And I am thrilled and slightly like a 10-year-old version of myself, because joining me today is iconic Villa player and legend and captain of that side, Dennis Mortimer. Welcome, Dennis.
Hi, Paul. Good to be with you.
Now, I wonder, to kick us off, Dennis, pardon the football pun, if we could go way back to your early memories. When did you first start kicking a ball?
I could remember, sort of the first physical time I hit a ball, but I would imagine it was in the infant school. And it's quite interesting actually, because you've got this playground full of kids, and we wouldn't have been using a big ball. We probably would have been using a tennis ball, because they wouldn't let you have the big ball, because in case of hitting someone with it and everything. But I think I remember always running around and weaving in and out of other kids and everything with the ball, and maybe other guys who were trying to chase after you to get it off you. But I think it was that confusion of in a situation like that, where you knew you had to be decent with the ball. So it probably just one of those sort of early thoughts in your head that when I've got a ball, if I want lots of touches on it, I'm going to have to keep it. Yeah. So I honestly feel like that was probably the time. And I do remember being in the infant school, and it was always, if we weren't running in and out of people with a ball, we were doing it, as a plaything. And these are the things that you need, when you start growing up and you get those fundamental movements, of dodging and weaving and everything. And that's all we did really in those days, because there was no computers. The television was rubbish, so you made your own fun, and it was all about doing sort of adventurous things most of the time.
Well, it's interesting. It's very interesting hearing you say about playing with a small ball, like a tennis ball,
Yes,
and having to kind of control that small ball at an early age. That's fascinating. Now, am I right? I remember you saying to me that you also, maybe this is when you were a bit older, but you went to a school where there was a very good football team. Obviously you're from Liverpool, so there's some great players that came out of Liverpool. But when you were little, you were at a team that was a good team, yeah.
Well, not so much little, but growing up, but in those in sort of those later years in secondary modern school, as it was then. Yeah. I was part of I come from a town called Kirby, just outside of Liverpool. And we had 3 senior boys' schools, right? There was St. Kevin's, there was Roughwood, and then there was Brookfield High, which is where I went to. And those from those schools, the Kirby boys team of under 15s would have been chosen from those 3 schools. And I was one of those fortunate ones with a couple of others from my school to actually be in that Kirby boys team. But the thing about that team is that it's actually contained today actually 4 guys who actually went on to win the European Cup, which is no mean feat really for such a small town, as we were.
That's extraordinary, Dennis. Can you share the names of the other players?
Yeah, well,
with you,
myself obviously, and then Kenny Swain, who was a teammate of mine, obviously when we won the European Cup. Terry McDermott played for Liverpool, and Phil Thompson, who played for Liverpool. Now, Phil was Phil was a year younger than us, but so he didn't play in our Kirby boys team. He was from the following year. But Phil and I went actually to the same school, and I don't reckon that in Europe there's actually, I wouldn't have thought that there'd be 2 young people who went on to win the European Cup who actually went to the same school.
I can't believe there is, Dennis.
I would have thought
I can't
so.
believe there is.
I wouldn't have thought
No,
so.
I think that's fairly unlikely. But you must have had some coach at Kirby Boys' team.
Listen, I think it was all about natural ability, to be honest, and that.
Okay.
And that. Listen, football was what we played, Paul. You know, we didn't stop playing football. We didn't, as kids. We were out there all the time. You know, doing athletic things. You know, we didn't sit around. We were out there doing it, and consequently, our skills were getting honed all the time. You know, getting better and better and better. And yet, you do need a coach to obviously, first of all, see who's available, see what players will fit into a team, and then he puts it together, and then you go out there, and with his guidance, you start to sort of learn about positioning and everything like that. So yeah, we had a decent team.
Well, that sounds extraordinary, and obviously we're going to talk about coaches and one manager and coach in particular a bit later in this chat. But at what point did you realise that this might be a career that you could play professionally? When did that start to get in your mind?
I think that was always in your dreams, Paul. Yeah, to start.
Yeah, it was in mine. It didn't work out for me, Dennis.
No.
I had to go down the showbiz route.
Yes, but listen, you didn't do too bad. Don't worry. Yeah. I think from you know, being a Liverpool fan, I started going to watch Liverpool with my dad and a couple of my other brothers. Yeah, probably by the age of 12. And obviously in those days when we was watching Liverpool, it was a great Shankly team. Yeah, so you know, and in those days, you needed to be in the ground by 2 o'clock with a 3 o'clock kickoff because the gates were shut. Yeah, and it was that, you know, there was that much enthusiasm for football in those days, you know, because that was the thing you did. You went to watch football. So I reckon I started, and then you know, once I started watching the players like Peter Thompson and Ian Callaghan and Gordon Milne and Ian St. John and Roger Yates and all these people now, they started to sort of have an impression on you, and then you start dreaming yourself that one day you'd love to be playing football at that level and going on and lifting trophies and all that. So it starts early. It really does, you know. And you know, no different from me. And I you know, I did dream that one day, not playing for Aston Villa, but playing for Liverpool. but I had to go a different route to win that trophy, and that was to obviously go down the route of going to Coventry, then joining Villa, and that's where we had all our success.
And so was Coventry your first professional club?
Yeah. At 15, I joined at 15. You know, it was you could leave school at 15. Then the following year it was 16. So I just got in before that sort of watershed of being 16. But no, I started my apprenticeship, and in those days it was a 3-year one. So yeah, I was 15 when I joined Coventry City.
Wow! Yeah. And were you at that stage? Were you always a midfielder?
No, really, no. I think. See, you had two teams. You played for your school, and then you played for the town team, which was Kirby Boys. When I used to play for the school team, I would be a forward.
Okay.
And I would score a lot of goals. Yeah, you know, I used to keep a record of the games we played and score. But you know, obviously when I left home at 15, I left all that at home. You know, all those records, and to my horror, yeah, I left home then with all my, not only my records but all my Marvel comics. Right, honest, from #1 going forward, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Iron Man, the Fantastic Four. I had all these. I had a paper round, you know, so I had a bit of money to be able to buy these comics. But my mum and dad moved out and forgot to tell me, and he threw everything away.
Oh, Dennis,
yeah,
they'd be worth a few bob.
No, they would now, but you know, the water under the bridge, Paul. But
yes, exactly.
But no, so when I was at school, in the school team, I'd play up front. But then when I played for Kirby Boys, I played out wide on the right hand side. Okay. Part of probably a midfield come sort of forward unit, in those days, because systems were a bit different then. 4-2-4 it might have been. So the 4 at the front would have been 2 wingers and 2 forwards, 2 midfield players, and 4 defenders. Yeah. So that's how it was.
And And when you joined Coventry, where did you play when you were first started at Coventry?
Well, very similar, really. You know, I started off playing out on the wing, yeah, not central. When I went to central midfield, that evolved, right? Obviously, throughout my playing days and also circumstances. So, you know, when I started playing in the first team, it might have been that I was my first game actually was against Liverpool in an FA Cup tie. Yeah, and it was on a snowbound pitch in January, which wasn't the best opportunity to, you know, to go and make your debut when you're trying to run on snow. But the game went ahead, but on that game I played left wing, so that was my first game in the first team playing on the left wing. Now, unusual because I was a right-footed player, yeah, but because the vacancy at the time was on the left wing, I played on the left wing. But then throughout my early years, then playing in the first team, I would play in the right wing, I would play in the middle. And that was, as I said, what that was all about at times was if there was a player injured in the midfield area, then I could step into that area. And so I picked up a central role, a wide role, and that's the way it developed. And it wasn't until sort of those late years at Coventry, just before I actually moved to Villa, where that sort of central role started to develop for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I remember you saying, Dennis, before that when you made the move to Villa, it came a bit out of the blue. You didn't know much about it. Is that right?
Well, I had an inkling of it. Yeah. I mean, up to that point, there'd been stories the season before about transfers and everything, but nothing had come about. But then I remember going in, it was just before Christmas in '75, when one of our players called David Cross, he actually played at Norwich under Ron Saunders as manager.
Okay.
And I remember coming in this on the Monday morning, having played on the Saturday, and Dave, once we started getting, Dave just came over to me and said, "Oh, I had my former manager on the phone last night, yeah, asking a few questions about you." I said, "Oh, right, who's that?" I said, "Who's that?" And he said, "Ron Saunders." So I said, "Oh, right, okay." And I didn't think anything about it. I just thought, oh, it's just talk again. But the fact that, you know, no one who had worked under Ron before, like Dave had ever come up to me and said, "Oh, so and so are interested in you." So that was the first time. But I went away. I went home that day and I didn't even think about it. But then the next morning, early next morning at 8:30, yeah, you know, I'm up, yeah, get a phone call. The club now asking me to go in because the manager wants to see me. Yeah. So at 8:30 now. So as soon as I got that phone call, I don't get phone calls at 8:30 in the morning from the football club, Paul. No way. So I knew. I started to put two and two together. Yeah, and that two and two together now, when I got to the ground, secretary said, "Look, we've Aston Villa interested in signing you. We're going to take you to Stonebridge Island, which was on the A45, which was not far away from where Ron used to live. And he was going to take me then to this roundabout on the A45. I was going to get into Ron's car then, and then we were going to drive to Villa Park, yeah, onto the M6 and then to Villa Park. And that's how it all started, really. So it was a big surprise. But you know, having got the phone call, then I started putting two together, and then it was.
And what about your early memories of playing at Villa Park? What was it like going out onto Villa Park and those fans?
Right. Okay. So the first game, you know, I don't know what to expect really at Villa Park. I've never been there before. I'd never played there because Aston Villa weren't in the first division when I was playing.
Of course.
Yeah. So when I've left Coventry now, I've gone to a club who's just got promotion from the second division. Ron Saunders has brought them up. Also won the League Cup in that same season. So we're now playing, and now I've come out. So Villa Park, I've looked at the ground. It's an old ground, yeah, but it's much different from that Highfield Road. Highfield Road was like a new ground compared to Villa Park. You know, all the old signs that were up, all the old windows with stained glass and everything. It was a really, you know, sort of antiquated place, to be honest. Anyway, I've gone into the ground, signed, got everything sorted out, signed the contract. So the first game is on Boxing Day against West Ham. So get to the game. I've got no expectations about what kind of audience, what kind of attendance there'd be. So I step out now for my first game on Villa Park, and there's 52,000 in the ground.
Good Lord.
You know, and I was just amazed by that, really, because, you know, I was used to like 20 to 30,000 at Highfield Road, but now there's 52,000. The ground is just ram-packed with supporters.
Wow.
You know, so it was difficult not it was difficult not to give us some kind of thought. Oh dear me, where
no,
there's a few eyes on me now, Paul. Yeah.
I can imagine, and if I think about, you know, my younger self going at that same time with my dad and standing on the Holt end and stuff, and, you know, of course I go now and it's a great atmosphere, but that what you're describing for a player must have been extraordinary. And you mentioned the League Cup success, and then of course we won it again in '77, and then I'll take you now towards, of course, the extraordinary achievement of winning the First Division title, and obviously a lot of people favoured, you know, teams like Liverpool, and then obviously Ipswich Town as we battled with them throughout the season. Again, I think you've mentioned this before, but you mentioned, and actually Tony Morley mentioned this game as well. Can you talk a little bit about the game against Liverpool that season at Villa Park?
The one at Villa Park, the one at Villa Park, I think, was I felt would be the real watershed for us, really, from the point of view of now stamping our sort of credibility, you know, for being on the top or in the top two, and at the time as well, Liverpool were always the one team you feared most, because they always had this ability to have that consistency throughout the season, and always, you know, you look back at their records, you know, they might win the championship by 1 point, but the thing about them is that they knew how to do it. Yeah, from our point of view, this is new. This is new. But that game now was the game that I going into it, I just thought, you know, we need to now, if we can win this one, we can really now, I felt, put Liverpool out the race, and then it'd be just ourselves and Ipswich. So the game, you know, we're going into that game, it's a 47,000, you know, sellout and everything. Wow. So, it was a great atmosphere and everything. And we go into that game, and it is all about winning. That game is all about, it's not drawing, it's about winning. Yeah. And although it was only 2 points, you know, for a win, there was still, obviously, even if we had lost it, there was still time to regain those points. But this one I think was just from our point of view, it was to try and send a message to Liverpool. Hey, you guys, you're not going to win this league this season. There's going to be someone new on top of the table this season, you know.
And what about the goal you scored?
Yes,
Dennis?
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, when we've been out with Q&As, you know, with the guys and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony makes a point of saying that he felt that was the goal of the season from his point of view, not the one he got. Yeah, because as you all know, Paul, you've seen his goal, and that's part of that great season, is Tony's goal of the season. But he just thinks that that second goal against Liverpool, the one I got, was just it epitomised really the way we played as a team. Because the whole thing, the whole sequence around that goal, and it's so vivid in my mind, is that Kenny Swain collects the ball, and just outside the penalty area on the right hand side near the corner flag, he then starts to run with the ball because there's space to go, because the player who's been dispossessed really has been their left back, which was Alan Kennedy, and he's right up the pitch now, so there's a bit of space up that wing. Anyway, so Kenny now starts on his run, as I always did. You know, I'm sort of watching the play, seeing what's going on. I'm now on the edge of the box, yeah. And as soon as Kenny started setting off, I've set off with him, and I'm just running down the centre of the pitch now. And Kenny keeps going. I keep going. Yeah. Anyway, Kenny gets to the halfway line. Now, the Liverpool team have all pushed up. They're all pushing up to the halfway line because they're now trying to make an offside trap, from their point of view. Anyway, Gary Shaw and Peter Wade start running back towards the halfway line. As Kenny gets to the halfway line, he does like a little back pass. He just leaves the ball then, a little crossover, what we call with Gary Shaw. Gary now collects the ball on the right wing. He turns inside on his left foot, and then he sees me. He spots me running through the centre of the pitch, and then he plays the ball into the space behind the Liverpool defence. So now I'm running towards the goal. I've got Ray Clements in front of me. I've got 25,000 fans in the old end, all screaming, thinking what's going to happen here now. I've got this big space. And one of the hardest things in football is when you get a 1v1, especially when you're running, when you get those instinctive goals where the ball comes to you and you just hit it and it flies in the back of the net. They're the easy ones. When you've got these 1-against-1s where you now got to take the keeper on. So I'm going towards Ray Clement. I'm thinking to myself, two options, Paul. Do it go round them. Yeah, try to take it round and play it into an empty net, or play the early ball, the early pass. Because what it is, I'm just passing the ball really into the back of the net. Yeah. So I'm going towards, so I decide now, as he starts to run towards me, he starts to make my decision for me. So as he's running towards me, he's not balanced, he's not set. So I now slide the ball down his left-hand side. So he can't get a foot to it, he can't get a hand to it, he can't go down in it, and the ball nestles in the back of the net. And that now for me, was as Tony said, summed up, what we were all about really. And that was a team that we tried to keep the ball on the ground as much as possible and play it on the ground. And, and people talk about the passing game today. Well, it was there in our days. Yeah. But the great thing about that was as Tony says, that was a team goal again. Yeah. And that's what we were all about. Yeah.
Well, you were exactly. You were a brilliant team with a great team spirit. But thank you for that description. That is the most brilliant description of a goal. That's fantastically.
You never forget
so, of course, no, I'm sure you won't. That's and of course, Villa then do win that title. Yeah. I should say to listeners, it was the first time in 71 years. So I was looking up some facts before this interview. That the last time Villa won it, previous to that, Captain Scott set out on his doomed trip to the Antarctic.
Absolutely.
So it gives you an idea how long ago it was. So therefore, we find Villa in Europe.
Yes.
So how many of the players had actually played any European football?
I had, yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy Rimmer, probably.
Yeah. Not many.
Peter with.
Yeah.
No, I'd say probably about maybe four players. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're obviously drawn in the first leg against Valur Reykjavik, the Icelandic team, who presumably no one knew anything about.
No one knew. They were an amateur team as well, but obviously they won their championship in Iceland. So no, we didn't know anything about them, but that never feared us, because if you know too much about someone, you might go out there with a bit of sort of trepidation, thinking, especially as you move through, the final. You get to the final and you're playing against a team full of internationals, and that was the way all the way through the tournament, really, because Berlin, Dynamo Kiev, those teams, Anderlecht, they were full of internationals, Paul. But it wasn't part of our psyche to worry about the opposition as Ron, because this is what Ron Saunders sort of he sort of got into us, through the way his psychology worked, was that don't worry about the opposition, just concentrate on yourself. And your quote, about would you bet against us? That was one of Ron's sort of great one. But the one he always put in his notes in the program was that if the players give me 110%, that's all I ask for. Yeah. but you can't give 110%, Paul,
that's a very good,
I mean?
that's a very good quote.
But the thing is, we'd always put that in there, and you'd read it and you think, Ron, what are you doing? We can't give you that.
But Dennis, do you think I mean, you know, it was an extraordinary achievement, of course, what he achieved with you as a team and everything. Do you think he's still slightly underrated as a manager?
To be honest, I wouldn't say he was ever underrated as a manager because his record speaks for himself. No,
of course.
Listen, he's not a manager that comes to thought like Cloughy, like Paisley, like Shankly, like Ferguson. But you look at the modern day game, and you think to yourself, well, how many other managers, won what he did? 2 league cups, first division championship. And obviously we include him in the European Cup because it was his team.
Of course.
You know, so in a 10-year spell, you know, a 12-year spell of 10 years really, probably, of being manager at Aston Villa, he did something that a lot of managers never get a chance to achieve. Yeah, and so,
that is true.
But the other thing is, well, it's a little bit like Aston Villa. You know, we've fallen off the radar around the success. It's 40 years now, Paul. Yeah. Since we won those 2, and you know, we went on the pitch yesterday at Villa Park.
Oh, brilliant!
No, we had a really good day. We had a celebratory day parade at Villa Park. So we took the trophies onto the pitch. We went round the ground, showing the trophies off to the fans. So you need to get online and have a look at the fun that went on yesterday. But no, because we had that celebration with the club. They gave us that lovely trophy as a memento. Yeah. But in one sense, we've fallen off the radar, you know, as being one of the great clubs in the 80s. So what's got to happen now is that to bring that back, Aston Villa back, you've got to get that success, you see. But Ron got that success, and he put us on. And you know, talking to the fans who were there when we who were part of it, you know, they just say, "We love you guys," you know, because you gave.
Well, it's true. There's even in beginning to make this show and talking, you know, and obviously my reason for making the show is as a fan. There's an enormous amount of affection for all of you, you know, all of those players, and I not just the generation who are old enough to see it, but the younger generation who've been told about it, and I think legacy is a very important thing in life, and particularly in football. Dennis, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I know we're going to meet again at the Rec with Kenny and Tony at the show, which I'm really looking forward to. I just want to finish, Dennis, if I may. I'm going to ask you 7 rapid questions, and I just want your first immediate answer.
You might be lucky. You might be lucky with that.
No, you'll see what I mean. Maradona or Johan Cruyff?
Maradona.
Minder or the Sweeney?
The Sweeney.
Which of these 2 places did you least like playing at? The Hawthorns or St Andrews?
The Hawthorns. No, change that round. No, I like playing at the Hawthorns because we always won. So let's say St Andrews because we did know we were
okay. That's good. Reykjavik or Berlin?
Both rubbish, but let me think. It'd have to be Berlin because Reykjavik was beyond belief.
Okay. What means the most to you? The first division title or the European Cup?
First division championship.
Excellent. Coming to today, I think I know the answer to this. This is today's race for the title: Man City or Liverpool?
Man City. It goes against what I feel, but I just feel like they'll do it because that's their focus now. Liverpool's focus is it's the European Cup and the league, and they're starting to lose 1 or 2 players. But I'd have to go for Man City for the league. Yeah,
I know what you mean. And finally, did you have a pre-match ritual? Were you superstitious, or did you just go on and treat it?
No,
did you not think about it?
No, I had a routine. I did have a routine.
Okay.
And the routine was get there for 2 o'clock. I'd get my tickets sorted out on the gate, and then it was down for the next hour to concentrate on getting ready for the game. But the superstitions I had, right? I wore my socks inside out. Right.
Yeah.
And and before I got the captaincy, I actually went out last.
Okay.
Right. So I went from being last out to being first out. Yeah. But those two sort of things I did religiously. Oh, and the other thing I think you're waiting for is the swig of brandy, aren't you? You are. You're waiting for the.
I couldn't possibly comment. Dennis.
The swig of brandy before the game. Only in the winter. Only in the winter.
Dennis, it's been a real pleasure. I really look forward to seeing you after the show, and thank you for doing what you did, and for chatting and reliving those memories, which we'll do over the next 3 weeks with the show. All the best, Dennis. Have a good day.
See you later. Cheers, Paul.
Cheers,
bye.
Dear listeners, if you've enjoyed this idiot podcast, please spread the word